Our next speaker is new, has never spoken at this conference before. Another former New Yorker. What do we do when we have a former New Yorker? Boo. And he too, actually, this is not what he has written down here, but he too did not know how to drive. But he learned 3 years ago, right before he moved to Baltimore. And he learned in the East Village with his kids in the back seat. I can't imagine that. But what he wanted me to tell you about him is that he is the first person to speak at the NYR conference using AI-generated music as his walk-up song. Yeah. Everyone, please welcome Alan.
Hopefully you guys hear the full audio later. The second stanza is even better. Thank you to everybody. I'm Alan Feber, freelance data scientist, machine learning engineer. I did live in New York City again, as Jared said, until 3 years ago. Now I'm actually just outside DC, but it's pretty great to be back. I love being back in New York. I'm here to talk about Retrieval-Augmented Generation, often shortened to RAG, hence all the RAGtime thematic puns. Retrieval-Augmented Generation is a little bit of a jargony sounding term. It's a method where you can combine generative AI, like ChatGPT, with your own documentation. I kind of find the best way to explain it is with a little bit of a demo. So I made a little web application about, I took all of the talks from the past 10 years of New York R conferences. Let's say you want to start asking questions of it. Say, I am a data, I am new to data science. Should I start learning with base R? When I run this, we get the talk from David Robinson, who just spoke here. He also spoke in 2018, and it pulls out all the information from his talk, or some of the information from his talk, where David Robinson suggests that beginners in data sciences should start learning with the tidyverse rather than base R. A couple of other examples. We heard about the NFL earlier. What kind of models are used in the NFL? We obviously don't have any anything from today's talks, but it gets Tom Bliss and Mike Mike from last year, Tom from 2 years ago, talking about the different types of models they use. Tom talked about mixed effects models. Mike talked about XGBoost and convolutional neural networks. This is sort of a way to kind of get some of the data from wherever you have into kind of a little bit more of a chat-like interface. One more example, how do they use R at Airbnb? And we get to a talk from Ricardo from 2017, and it really explains in depth that they have an internal package. It actually spells this wrong, RBMB. I'll explain that in a moment. But it talks about the 100 functions that they use, all the education, reproducibility, R Markdown, really going into details about how they actually use R at Airbnb. So I assume that probably everybody here, even before today, had heard of ChatGPT. Probably many of you have used it. It talks about how it can do lots of fun things like making up a story about Sharky, a toothbrushing shark. But I think everybody who has used it, as we've heard earlier, there's a big problem with it, which is that ChatGPT can make mistakes. Consider checking important information. And this is something often called hallucinations. I asked ChatGPT what was the first year of the New York R conference, and it actually said that first one took place in 2014. I think everyone heard Jared earlier talk about how the first year was 2015. Personally, I believe Jared instead of ChatGPT. I then went and asked Claude, which is a different large language model by Anthropic, and it actually gave incredibly specific information about how it started on April 24th, 25th, 2009. It's sort of a combination because, as Jared said, April 2009 was the first R meetup, but it wasn't on April 24th and 25th, and it wasn't at the New York Academy of Sciences, and the conference wasn't set up by Drew and John. So all of it is incredibly precisely wrong. The other problem with ChatGPT is it might not have access to the data that you specifically want to be asking about. I asked it, how do they use that R at Airbnb? And it gives an incredibly boring and generic answer about how one might use R at companies like Airbnb. It even says explicitly, I don't have insider knowledge of their specific practices. But the thing is, we do have insider knowledge of their specific practices based on the videos on rstats.ai. And that's what brings the benefits of retrieval-augmented generation. The R of RAG, retrieval, is because the whole method retrieves a list of documents and identifies which ones of the documents are most likely to answer whatever question you're going to put in. The G of RAG is generation. This is generative AI taking the information from these documents and putting it, you can imagine, into that box on the bottom of ChatGPT. But it only is supposed to use the information that you put in, that you're retrieving from your database of YouTube videos or whatever it is. There's lots of ways in which people can and have been using retrieval-augmented generation. There's a number of examples. For example, tech support. You can imagine maybe you're a company, it makes ovens, and instead of making everybody go to those really annoying PDF manuals online where you can have to find exactly what's going wrong, you might be able to build a little chatbot, taking from that information, finding the specific place in the manual, and then, even better, putting it into nice, free text in English in a way that's understandable. There's lots of talks about using being able to query questions about your company's benefits policy. For internal research documents, I'm aware of a large government government organization that has 20 to 30 years of reports from around the world, and right now it's very hard to access. And they're trying to build RAG models or RAG applications where they can have people use and understand, bring in all the information that's been used in the past. Even just this week, Google at their conference talked about how they're going to be using AI and Gmail to sift through all the old emails. Their example here is catch me up on emails from my kids' elementary school. They obviously don't say out loud what they're doing, but I feel that it's quite likely that they're using some type of RAG type technique, even if it's a much more complex version than what I'm about to explain. A couple of small things that I just want to mention before going into details of how I did it. You could always think about, hey, why can't I just put all this information into the context, into the information into ChatGPT? One of the things about large language models is they can only remember a limited amount of information at any one time. The currency they use is tokens, which, if you're not familiar, you could imagine as something close to words. Certain open source models, such as Llama by Meta, only can have about 8,000 words, tokens at one time. Thinking about it in terms of the talks at NYR, that's about one talk. Certainly doesn't fit an Andrew Gelman 40-minute special. The new ChatGPT versions is 128,000 words, which is a lot more, and certainly any given talk can fit into there. But you can't ask all of the talks. Not everything that NYR conference has done would fit into ChatGPT at once. The other thing that I just want to quickly mention is embeddings. All large language models work on embeddings. If you're not familiar with what an embedding is, you can actually go into the tool and ask, why are embeddings awesome? And you actually get last year's talk from Matt Dupree about OpenAI's embeddings are cooler than ChatGPT. For those of you who were not here last year, at a very high level, an embedding is representation of a word, sentence, or document as a set of numbers. If you think about it, machine learning is really just math, and to do math, you have to do math on numbers, and essentially, the embeddings are the way to convert from words into numbers, and then numbers back into words. The first thing that I did when building the app that I showed you earlier is I transcribed all the YouTube videos from all the previous talks. Google actually gives an automatic transcription of every video. It's not great. It's okay, it's not great. That's why I decided to sort of download all the videos using these two tools as audio files, and then I used the open source version of the Whisper model. Whisper is essentially it's transcription. It's speech to text, and I use that to translate the text. It's a lot better than the YouTube version. It's not 100% perfect. That's actually why in the Airbnb example, the actual package that they were using was called RBNB because everybody makes puns with their company names and the letter R, and somehow Whisper didn't realize that that's what everyone does in the R community. The next part of RAGs is figuring out how to structure, split, chunk, and store your documents. This is something that I find actually really difficult. There's no great best practices. It really depends on your given situation. Sometimes you want to break things up into really small chunks because it makes it easier. Everything has only one topic. Sometimes you want to get something larger so you get all the relevant contexts. Again, what you're going to do would depend on the situation. Here, I actually searched for the videos based on the abstract, the descriptions of the videos on YouTube. And then when we wanted to search within videos, I broke it up into transcripts of about 40 seconds each. Again, is there a great reason I did it? No, but it seemed to work nicely. Then you have to embed your chunk. Again, turn all those words that we found into numbers. There's lots of models and tools with which to do it. If you want to send the compute to someone else, you can pay OpenAI for that privilege. It's actually very cheap to do. If you wanted to do it totally locally, you could use this sentence transformers package. It's something that sits on top of a repository of models called Hugging Face. There's even a leaderboard. It's kind of like sports standings for the different embedding models. Here, I just use the OpenAI embeddings. I think embedding all the talks was, 20 cents, so that was fine. You're going to then take the question that somebody's putting into the tool, such as, should I learn with base R, and embed that with the same number transformation that you're using for all your documents. Then you use a tool called cosine similarity. This is an idea, comes from linear algebra or, frankly, high school trigonometry, where you basically try to say, once we've turned everything into a vector of numbers, which set of numbers representing a document is the closest, the most similar to the set of numbers that is within our question. The idea here is that the topic of the question is embedded somewhere in that set of numbers, and so you want to find the video that is most similar to those set of numbers because it's probably about the relatively similar topic, and that'll answer your questions. Once you've sorted it by something like cosine similarity, you have to decide how many videos or documents to bring in. Again, there's no right answer. Here I chose kind of 1 to 4 videos, depending on how similar, how relevant the videos were. But again, there's no perfect way to do it. If you ever decide to use the GPT API, or even any other large language model API, there's always this thing called a system prompt. When you're using GPT.com or OpenAI.com, it's all hidden. But here's where you tell the AI model exactly what you want it to do at a high level. When I write this, I feel like I'm talking to my 5-year-old, because I basically say, ChatGPT, please don't lie to me. If you don't know the answer, it's okay to say you don't know. It's actually surprising how much telling it not to lie helps. It's not 100%, just like my 5-year-old, but it works out well. And then you take the output, putting it into the API, getting it out, putting it on the screen. This is exactly what it came out with. One of the nice things about using some type of RAG method is you're able to then go back and identify the original document. so that if you're worried that this is something that's not true, you can link back. Here, you can link to the videos. Elsewhere, you could link back to, say, the specific page in your report, or even bring over the entire text. And that's a way for people to feel a little bit more confident and know whether GPT is hallucinating in this case, even though we told it not to. I'm going to give a little bit more example, going back to the talk. A couple of other things I added in here. Let's say you want to start from fresh. What is the tidyverse? Here we're getting a few different talks from Emily Robinson, Max, and David. I actually added in, you kind of say the title of the talk, the speaker, the year. I used similarity score, and I put that up so you can know how similar, how close they are to each other. I even included down here, you can expand out the entire transcript. I could have probably put in just the most relevant parts, but I was doing this a little bit last minute, so I put in just the specific parts that I adjust the entire thing. I also included how much it cost. Again, running the OpenAI API costs some money. Here it's only 6.9 cents. It depends on really whether you're going to use something like this. Might depend on how many people use it, what kind of budget you have. There are open source models where you don't have to pay to actually use it every time, but you do have to figure out how you're going to be computing billions of parameters, where you're going to be doing that. So again, which model you use might depend on the situation. If anybody is interested in this, I've put the code to this app on GitHub. It's open for anyone to see. I have the source subfolder where I kind of include the code. Again, if anybody wants to fork it or use it on their own, it's something that I think could be a helpful way to maybe understand what is a RAG, at least at its base vanilla level, and kind of use it continuously, use it more. There's lots of ways that I could make it better. I sort of did some basic ideas with how to chunk it. There's a lot more complex retrieval methods than just cosine similarity. There's other things I could have told it. Maybe I could have told it even stronger not to lie. There's other embeddings models I could have used. There's other chat models I could have used. These might have made it better, and if you ever decide to make your own type of RAG app, you might want to do it. How do you know if adding these makes it better? For that, you might want to wait about a half hour, because that's Abigail's talk. But for this, if you want to access the actual app, you can use this QR code or just go to NYR.alanfader.com. I have the link to the code itself, the slides. You can feel free to use it. The one thing I am going to caution you is I'm not going to allow everyone to use my API, so you don't all charge my credit card. But there is a link there in case you want to create your own API, a place to put it in, and it'll just start automatically working for you. So thanks everybody for this opportunity, and good luck with everything.